We are going to make a Valentine's Day card using AI. First thing you need to do is you need to go to CodePad.site and create an account here. When you do so, you will actually be on this page and you'll see a lessons link here. So click it and then you'll see one of our lessons here. This is a meetup that we actually did on February 13th. So if you did not attend our free meeting, you can follow the video today. I'm going to go ahead and click the Learn button to start. So as it says, we're going to use OpenAI assistance to create a personalized Valentine's Day card for a loved one. So you need to think about, who you want to write the Valentine's Day card for. But before we begin, let me give you a little bit of background on what this uses. So underneath the cover is using ChatGPT. And as you might know, ChatGPT gathers most of its data from web, books, and other sources of public information. So it creates this large language model, and it then is able to generate human-like responses to your questions called prompts. But what this means is that it's all based on public information. And if you have anything that's personal, like what we're trying to do for a Valentine's Day card, it won't know anything about it. So OpenAI, the company that created ChatGPT, created this beta version called Assistance API. And one of the tools in this Assistance API is something called knowledge retrieval. And what this allows you to do is allows you to provide additional data to the AI model, which is then stored in some database. And that's kind of a little bit more technical. But at the end of the day, it's a technique or technology called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG, that was actually created by Meta or Facebook. Okay? So the way it works is that when you give it a prompt, it first then looks into its database for information, the information that you gave it. And then when it finds it, it combines it with that into the original prompt that you gave it, and it passes on to GPT, which then gives you a proper response. So now let's go ahead and do this Valentine's Day card. Okay, so just remember that this API, or the tool that we're using, Assistance API, is in beta. So what that means is that most likely when they finalize it, it is bound to change, or it might change along the way. So as I mentioned, the first thing you need to do is you need to think about a person that you want to create a Valentine's Day card for. And so again, this information is going to remain private. ChatGPT won't, make it public to any other person. And so our prompt or our question is going to be to request ChatGPT to create a poem that you give it, along with some general knowledge that you provided. Okay, so now you should see the questionnaire here. So we're gonna, maybe you could pause the video, go ahead and answer these questions here. As it says, you're gonna put your answers under each of the questions or statements. And there's a little side question that, do you recognize what college these short answer prompts came from? I'll let you go and figure that out if you don't know it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy in the file. So notice that if you click on this link, this file link here, it opens up and you can see there's a questions.txt file that you're filling out. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste that in. So, okay, so I chose to do a good one, Barbie. So if you look at it, we're going to describe the 3 words: blonde, doll, pretty. Favorite snack is honey. Obviously, her favorite movie is Barbie. She wants to be a fashion model. Her famous place to go is to go to Malibu. A theme song is Closer to Fine. A TV show about herself. And in terms of the fictional character that would be her ideal roommate, of course, Ken. And she would teach you how to dress up. Her favorite book is, again, something about herself. And her favorite hobby is shopping. Okay. Now, before we get this to work, if you go to step number 2, it says you need to set the API key. So the API key is in this file called .env. And here it just says you need to replace this line with your OpenAI key. And it gives you a link on where to go to get this OpenAI key. So normally, you can just create an account on OpenAI. It'll give you some free tokens that you can use to do this project, and that should be a good starting point for you. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the file in this env. I'm just going to copy and paste the file in here. So, and that will have my key in there. So I'm going to go, okay, so it goes ahead and overwrites that. So now I have the key set up. Now remember, do not share this project with anybody else, because if they get your key here, then somebody can use it and charge up your the money to use this key. So just make sure you don't share the project to anyone else. All right, so going on to step 3, it says in the Files window, select Generate Message PY, and the first line imports the AI module. So let's go there. So I'm going to go to Generate Message API. You can actually close this out, so if you want more space here, and you can see it gives you some lines of code to begin with. So the first line goes and imports this OpenAI module. So if you were to do this outside of CodePad in Python, you would actually need to install the OpenAI package, okay? And you can see that's importing a couple more libraries, and then it imports something called card. Card is actually one of our files, and this is the module that actually will draw the card for you graphically, okay? So we're not going to focus on that part of it. We want to cover the part about using OpenAI assistance to get the poem. Moving on to step 4, this is where we say it would ingest the data. So now we have this questionnaire file, and we want to feed this file into OpenAI. So here it just says for this step and after, simply add the code to the end of the file. While this is only using a text file in this project, it supports many other file types. So we're just using a TXT file, but OpenAI actually supports things like PDF, even images, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you can go here and copy and paste this thing. Now, if you are a beginner, I highly encourage you to type this in, right? Because that will give you some, that'll help you sort of memorize or get some better experience about what the Python code looks like. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to do a copy and paste so that you can see what happens. So here I'm going to copy, and I'm just going to paste it on this line. And what it does is it's going to create this client using the OpenAI module, and you can see that it calls client files create, passes in the text file, and then says that it wants to use the AI assistance. Step 5, we're now going to actually create the assistant itself. So let's go ahead and do that. And if we look at this one line of code that's actually spans multiple lines here, it's basically calling this create method, and we're going to name it poem writer. And this is the important part, right? We're telling it to say you are a helpful assistant who's good at writing poems. When giving a response, don't say here's a blah blah blah, just write it, right? Because OpenAI tends to add extra text that you don't want. And again, here now we're saying not only do we want the OpenAI assistance, but we want this tool called knowledge retrieval. So that's what this tool stuff is. And then the model that we're using is GPT 3.5. Now you might say, hey, why don't we use GPT 4? It turns out in this particular project, GPT 3.5 is actually very, very sufficient, and it's a lot cheaper than GPT 4. Okay. And then the last thing you can see that we're passing in the questions ID, which is based on the file that we created. So you see the questions that we have. Now we're going to pass in this ID. So we're basically connecting these two together. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create this thread. So in OpenAI, a thread basically is going to keep track of a conversation, right? Because normally what happens is that whenever you ask a question to ChatGPT or to the assistant, it doesn't remember what the history was. And so you are actually responsible for sending back not only the response, but also the past questions. So with this thread concept that OpenAI introduced, you don't have to do that. It will actually do that automatically for you. In step 7, we're going to create this message prompt to create a Valentine's Day card. So let me go ahead and copy that in. And here we said name equals Cupid, and it says replace with the user's name. So I'm going to go back here and replace it with Barbie. And it says my message, and it goes and creates a message here, ties it in with the thread that I just created. The user is you. And then now you're telling ChatGPT to basically say, write a humorous Valentine's Day card message for, and it's going to actually fill in the name with Barbie. You don't have to change this name. You don't have to type in Barbie here. It will actually do this. This in Python is called an F string. So when you put the things in curly braces, it will actually replace the variable name with the value, which is Barbie now. Make it a 4-line poem. Make the lines short. In step 8, we said tell assistant to give you a response, and the way we do it is we need to pass in both the thread ID and the assistant ID. In step 9, we said wait for the assistant's response. So this part has a few lines of code. you can see it's going to say generating, and it goes into this while true loop, kind of what we sometimes call a forever loop, and it goes and calls this retrieve method. So what happens here is that it will eventually come back out and tell you what the status is. So you notice that when we call this method, we print out little dots so you can kind of see that things are progressing, and then we check the status. So the status is complete. We actually break out this while true loop, and if we get an error, we say something went wrong, and we'll also break out as well. So it kind of stays in this loop until it gets into one of these states that it's looking at. Then we go ahead and get the response. So let me go ahead and copy this part. And again, it's a couple lines of code here. We go and retrieve what we call the message list. So there's actually a lot of other information in this structure that returns you back. So it says all messages. And then we have to kind of walk through this structure to get the actual text. So you don't really need to know all the gory details for this, but you just know that, you're going to, it's like an array here, and then yet another, array, and so on and so forth, until you get the value, which contains, like I said, the response that it's giving you. So we pull that out and store it in a variable called assistant output. Now we have to do a little bit of massaging here, because what happens is that OpenAI Assistant, or ChatGPT I should say, is actually citing its sources because it wants to tell you like where it got the information. So this source would be, a lot of times it's a source from your questions.txt file. So we actually want to remove it. Okay, so this sub command or sub function will actually remove the source from that text file. And just want to warn you that these are like not really standard characters. So just make sure you just copy and paste this this string here. And finally, we go ahead and print the output. Okay, so you can see it on your console right here. And as a last step, we will actually draw the Valentine state card. But before we actually do the last step, let's go ahead and run this now because everything is now functional. So we'll go ahead and click the run button here. And you can see, like I said, it's generating with the ... and now it creates the 4-line poem that we asked. It says, Barbie, oh Barbie, so pretty and divine, honey stacks lover is to Malibu you shine. Fashion model dreams and a love for Ken. In the world of glam, you'll always be the gem. Wow, that's an awesome poem, right? And you could see that it took a lot of the words that I had in my questionnaire, right? It had the honey, it had the Malibu, it had Ken, it had fashion model, right? So that's pretty awesome. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add the last step, which is to give you a graphical drawing here. So it's just a one-line call because we're actually using the module that we created in card.py. So if you want to take a look at card.py, it's just using some code from a turtle library to do the graphics. Okay, but I'm just going to go ahead and paste that in. Let's go ahead and create another poem on this one. So let's go ahead and do another run. Once again, it's going to go into this generating, and sure enough, comes back. Now it's drawing the graphical part, so I'm going to raise it so you can see the graphical part. Oh, look at that. It says, Barbie, blonde and pretty, your style is always so witty. In Malibu, we be fine. Like honey, you're so divine. Wow, this is really great, right? And so you can see we drew the little red heart and put the text on there. So that's pretty much it. It's a really cool way to be able to give it some personal data to ChatGPT and then have it, or actually going through OpenAI assistants and have it generate a poem based on the information that you give it. Now, we have a couple more challenges here, but I'll let you go ahead and do it yourself here. But, if you have any questions, put your comments below. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you soon.